I'm going to hit record, and then with the good grace of the Lord, we will end up on YouTube. I got YouTube open as well just to see if, okay, there it goes. Yep, we're there, and we are here. I hear a little bit of a delay, so you may have something, a loop there.
Yeah, I've just automatically, the first thing I
Oh,
did was...
yep, we're there, and we are here. I hear a little bit of a delay, so you may have something, a loop there. I probably have to just mute my...
automatically, the first thing I did was...
Okay, that was me. I had to mute my YouTube.
All right, yeah.
Now that I muted, yeah. Okay, so now I muted my YouTube, so we are now live. We have, I don't know how many people hanging out. Oh, 3 people are here. So this is cool. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our little live broadcast here. So for we have 3 or 4, 6 people are now coming in. That's cool. This was scheduled, so we may have a few people. Johnny, if you want to check out the chat and just make sure that it's working. So Johnny and I welcome you to our second broadcast of what we're calling interactive mixing, which is where we have a song we're going to pull up here in our DAW, which will be Studio One this time around, and you all in the chat are going to have a chance to mix the song, meaning that I'm going to show you the session. There's no processing done. All that's been done is the files have been imported, and I kind of color coded them and organized them so they're, we can make heads or tails of what's going on. And then the chat is going to decide track by track how we process each element of the mix with compression, EQ, so on and so forth. And we're going to kind of mix the song together. Johnny and I are just going to kind of take your direction. So Johnny's going to help me monitor the chat. I'll make all the moves in the DAW, and we're going to go that way. So last time it worked out really well, and everyone had a lot of fun. And I think this will be the same. What do you think, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So you say that this is like a small acoustic band style?
This is going to be, this is by an artist called, her name is Marcy Each, and the name of the track is Falling in Love with a Girl. It has a acoustic guitar, small drum kit, a fiddle, something else, I forget, a piano, something, and a vocal, and a background vocal. It may be 12, 15 tracks at most.
Awesome.
So it's kind of laid back. Last time we did kind of a funk, kind of an R&B, kind of a James Brown, Rick James kind of a thing. And I thought this time let's go the exact opposite. So now we have, we have, how many people are hanging out? We have, hey, Christopher, how are you? Raymar, how are you? Robbie's here. Everyone's kind of filing in. We got about 10 people here. So what's going to be different, the only ground rules that we have are what kind of plugins we're going to use. So last time we were doing all Slate Digital plugins and stock plugins, right? Presonus and Slate Digital. This time around, we're going to stick with the stock plugins because a lot of folks that watch this are really only using stock plugins, so they want to see stock plugins being used. And we're going to allow for only two universal audio plugins, either the Pultec EQ, which I'll show you when we bring up the DAW, or the LA2A. So you can use any stock plugin by Presonus because we're going to use Studio One, or you can use an LA2A or a Pultec EQ for some hardware emulation. So there's no tape machines, there's no channel strips this time around. We're going to try to keep this stripped down to almost all stock plugins with a couple of pieces of analog gear if you guys decide you want to use it in the mix, and that'll be it. And then at the end of the session, I will eventually mix it down, throw it up on SoundCloud, and put it up on the Facebook page at Home Recording Made Easy, or facebook.com/Home Recording Made Easy. So if anyone has any questions, now would be the time to ask. We have 10 people hanging in here. We'll wait for a couple more people, Johnny. Then maybe we'll throw everything up. So anything going on in your world, Johnny, you want to let the good folks know about?
I've been at a conference this weekend with my local church, so I've been playing bass all weekend.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
It's very nice.
Great.
That's good fun.
Yeah, it's just day 1, so day 2 is tomorrow. So normally my bass is always with me, but today it's still, I left it at the church, so I'm feeling a little nervous about that.
You hope it'll be there tomorrow when you arrive, which I'm sure it will be.
Exactly. So
right.
I've a little hoarse because I've been singing backup vocal as well. So
right, cool. Well, you don't have to do any singing tonight. You can just kind of monitor we won't ask you to sing it all. You could stay quiet as much as you need to. Chris, how are you? The Future says, I purchased 5 of your videos. Hey, that's pretty cool. Thanks, The Future. Did you pick up MIDI Drums Made Easy? That's Johnny's course, but that's cool. Thanks so much for your support. You purchased 5 videos, man, and you're going to be busy for a while. Kevin, how's it going? Everyone,
What do you?
we got 12, 13 people or so hanging, floating around, 13 now. So what we'll do, what do you think, Johnny? We'll pop open Studio One and we'll jump right to it, right? We want to try to keep these things around an hour, hour and 10 minutes. We want to try to keep them short and sweet so people don't have to sit through a 3-hour video. We are going to do a regular live stream, which is next Saturday night, which is our monthly Home Recording Made Easy live stream where maybe we'll do some mixing. I'll do some demonstration stuff. Johnny and I will be here. We'll take a bunch of questions and we'll talk about gear and any questions that you guys have. And then we've kind of decided that this interactive mixing thing, we're going to do this once a month as well. So we're going to have 2 kind of live broadcasts, maybe like the 3rd Saturday or the 2nd Saturday and the 3rd Saturday of every month. So stay tuned to the Facebook page because I'll put up posts on when the next event's going to be. So you guys can put it on your calendar like you're doing today. And that's cool.
Totally blessed, you lot.
What's that?
You guys are totally blessed for live stream content from Home Recording Made Easy.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know if they're blessed or they're cursed or what. I know there's something. I don't know what they are. But no, this is fun. And I appreciate you, Johnny, doing this with me, doing this together. This is a lot of fun. So we got 15 people, 16 people. So cool. So let's jump into Studio One. So wave goodbye to Johnny. He'll still be here in spirit, but you're not going to see him on the screen here in a second. I'm gonna get rid of him and put him somewhere down in our dock here, and I'm going to open up Studio One and I'll switch cameras because I know you guys will say switch the cameras. So I'm going to jump over to camera number 2, and you guys should be seeing Studio One at this point. I know there'll be a slight delay on YouTube, but any moment now you'll see Studio One. And Johnny, just let me, you got it? Okay. So Studio One's up. Okay. So what we're going to do, as you see, this is a really small, and again, put your, resolution, if you could, to 1080p. That's going to give you the best, quality for detail on the screen and stuff. We kind of, in doing some experimenting, have realized that 1080p is the way to go. If you can do that, especially if you're watching this on a large screen TV or something, it'll be all pixelated and whatnot. The other thing is, hopefully, most of you are either listening to this broadcast on a good set of studio headphones or studio monitors, especially if you want to participate in the mixing process, which we encourage everybody to do. But if you're kind of watching this on your smartphone or on an iPad and trying to make, distinguish compression and EQ and stuff, you may not be able to hear all the changes because of the system that you're listening on. But have no fear, this will be in the archive on the YouTube channel later. You can always go back and rewatch it if you want to watch it once you get back to your home studio. So without further ado, here is our layout of our tracks here. So we have all down here in brown, we have our drums. So we have a kick, snare, hi-hats, tom, and overheads. Small drum setup. Then we have bass over here in blue, acoustic guitar in green, a lap steel. That was the other instrument, Johnny, I forgot, in like a different shade of green. We have a fiddle in this kind of off orange color, a lead vocal, and then a harmony vocal. So that's it. So we got 11 tracks, okay? And then I've already kind of just set up the busing system just because it's part of my template that I use. So I have a drum bus, bass bus, acoustic guitar bus, lead vocal bus, background vocal bus. That's it. Everything going to the main outs. As you'll see as I open up the mixer, there are no plugins on this at all, so we haven't done anything yet. So what I should do first is maybe let you guys listen to the song, right, just so you know what we're dealing with, and then we'll jump right into it. Now, again, I just kind of threw the faders up, so it's not, I would even say there's a static mix here, but you'll get the idea. I'll make some adjustments as we're listening. And just let me know in the chat, and Johnny, make sure that everybody can hear everything okay. I don't think we're going to be clipping. This is not a real heavy song.
Before we start, Dave, I was asked if you posted up the last mix.
I did. It's somewhere on the Facebook page. You'll see it. It was a SoundCloud post there. It was there. Yeah, it was there. And I can repost it if it got way down in the feed, and sometimes that happens. We get a lot of traffic on Facebook. I'll write myself a note right now, as a matter of fact, to repost the last mix along with this one.
Cool. Tim E., thank you very much. Appreciate your kind remarks about MIDI drums made easy. Thank you.
Cool. So yeah, I got a note. We'll repost that mix as well, but it is on the Facebook page somewhere down the stream there for sure. Okay. So should we hit it, Johnny? So I just play it back and we can go ahead. Okay, here we go. So this is a song by the artist is Marcy Each, and the name of the track is Falling in Love with a Girl. And here we go.
I bet you think you know the way to a woman's heart. promise you can make and then ignore, 'cause you just ain't falling in love. Falling in love with a girl. Falling in love with a girl. Playing with the fire that burns straight out of control. And there ain't nothing you can do when it starts, but just let go. But baby, if you still wanna feel what it means to be alive, then go ahead and do just what it is you do. But don't you go wasting my time. This ain't a notion that will lead you back to shore. This ain't a mountain you have ever climbed before. This ain't a promise you can make and then ignore, 'cause you just ain't falling in love. It's not about winning, I'm not a trophy on your wall. It's not about giving up anything at all. This ain't a notion that will lead you back to shore. This ain't a mountain you have ever climbed before. This ain't a promise you can make and then ignore, 'cause you just ain't falling in love. Falling in love with a girl. Falling in love with a girl. Falling in love with a girl.
And there we go. So I don't know why mix that. That sounds pretty good. Show's over.
Yeah, it does.
Right. Is there anything else? Do we really need to do anything? No, that I picked this on purpose because it is a well-recorded song, and some of this will be a little bit better for people to maybe hear compression, especially when the track is recorded well. And so this is why we picked this song. So anyway, that's kind of the tune. It's a folky, kind of an acoustic thing, right? Really cool. So we have no plugins at all at this point. So let's start with the master bus. If we want to do anything on the master bus, we'll let the chat, you guys kind of decide. Now remember, we have any stock plugin, or we can use two of the Universal Audio plugins. We have the Pultec EQ and the LA2A. If you don't know what those are, I will certainly pop them open and kind of show them to you as you guys are thinking about maybe what you want to do with the master bus or any of the busing. Do you want any master busing processing? I'll show you if you don't know what these two plugins are. So the LA2A, excuse me, by Universal Audio looks something like this. Well, it looks exactly like this, not something like it. The LA2A is a tube style compressor. Okay, so it has two real simple knobs on it. It has a peak reduction knob here on the right, and it has a makeup gain here. So it's real simple. You want, the more you turn up the peak reduction, the more gain reduction you're going to see on the meter, and then you compensate by turning up the gain. That's the basic gist of it. The hardware is a tube-based compressor, as I mentioned. And what this compressor is really known for, it's because it's a tube-style compressor, it tends to be very, very warm, very round sounding. It usually takes the top end of the frequency spectrum and kind of, I wouldn't say shaves it off, but smooths it out. It makes things sound really smooth and not harsh, and it really fattens up the low end. These things are used all the time on like bass guitar because it really warms up a bass and will sustain a note and get a nice thick warm sustainy kind of a thing. And so that's what the LA2A is kind of known for. It's a tube-based style compressor. The Pultec EQ, which is the EQ-P-1A, is this EQ here. And again, similar to the LA2A, it's a tube-based piece of hardware, EQ. This is a very sought after piece of equipment to get. A lot of companies today in hardware format try to do knockoffs of this, like Warm Audio, which I have a pair of those EQs. And again, because of the tubes, you can run anything through this EQ, and it's hard to make anything sound bad. And it has some unique characteristics to it. It's simple in its layout, but it's massive in the tonal characteristics that it places on the track. And so this will add, you know, warmth and vibe and color to anything you run through it, especially vocals. So that's the Pultec. Okay, so we have the LA2A and we have the Pultec EQ. Now we don't have to use either one of those anywhere in the mix, but those are your options. You have Presonus and you have those two pieces of vintage hardware emulation. Okay. So that's kind of where we're going. So on the master bus, do we want to do anything on the master bus at this point, or do we just want to jump into the kick drum? What is our trusty folks over in the chat saying, Johnny? What would they like to do here?
They're not really saying very much at the moment.
Okay.
But I'm going to suggest we get the compressor on the bus.
Okay. So yep. So if lack of response in the chat room, Johnny's going to fill in. That's cool. Okay, so on the master bus, you want to do a compressor. What compressor? Do you want to use a stock compressor? Or do you want to use one of the universal audio? Do you want to use the LA2A?
Yeah, let's use the Presonus compressor.
Okay, Presonus compressor it is. So let me go back over to my effects tab here, and I will try to.
Clark says use the slate, but we're not using.
Not this time around. Every interactive mixing session, we're going to do different tools, different plugins, just so I can introduce people to all the different plugins that maybe they have never used before. Okay, so here's our Presonus stock, the good tried and true stock compressor. So this is on the master bus. So what kind of settings we want to deal with? We probably should pick at least a ratio setting, and maybe kind of we want a fast attack, slow attack, fast release, slow release. What are you kind of thinking, Johnny?
I'm gonna go for the SSL style settings.
Okay, which are you want to explain those to the good folks at home?
It's to do with the attack and release of the console itself, the mix bus on the console. Certainly, I've been told that the attack time is 30 milliseconds and the release is 100 milliseconds on the SSL.
And the release is what?
100 milliseconds. So I started using that maybe about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
When I was told about this, and you know what, really, it does. I mean, even when you're using the Presonus compressor, it really does, you know, make the difference.
It does, and you're right about that attack and release. By the way, now on a ratio, it's set to a 2-to-1 ratio. Do we want to start there, or do we want to do something a little bit more aggressive?
I'd say stay there. I mean, it's a nice, easygoing song. So
yep, and we can tweak it as we go, right? We can always check it. Anything else on the master bus out there in the chat? Anybody else want to you want to add an EQ? Do you want to add another compressor, or should we just move on over to our kick drum? So we have our Presonus compressor. We're using a 30 millisecond attack and a 100 millisecond release. So it's a little towards a little bit past the medium side, and then we're running right now at a 2-to-1 ratio. Okay, I'm not even watching the chat, Johnny, so I'll just rely on you to do that if that's cool.
Yeah, Timmy is saying EQ.
Okay, what do you want to do for an EQ? You want to use the Presonus EQ, or would you like to use the Pultec EQ?
Rayma says Pultec.
Okay, anyone else second the Pultec? Or do we want to do with a Presonus? Either way is fine.
Yeah, either way is fine. Tim E says stock.
Okay, let's get one more. Who's the next one? Either stock or Pultec. The next one will win it.
To win.
Anybody?
Come on.
If not, we'll pick it.
Okay, Chris wins it for stock. Well
stock.
Done, Chris.
Okay, Chris, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go to the Pro EQ. Are we thinking about any kind of settings, Chris, on this, or anybody else, or do you just want to leave it kind of the way it is for now? What are you guys thinking?
Nothing coming through yet.
Okay. We can just kind of. I could play back a little bit of the song if you want.
Raymar says leave it as.
Leave it as for now?
Yeah, Chris says some high end. I'm not quite sure what he means. Does he mean cut some high or boost some high?
Why don't we take a quick...
Yeah, quick listen
let's
maybe.
let's just take a quick listen. I'll just kind of randomly throw it on there. I'll put up the spectrum analyzer here so you can see it.
Ain't a fancy car. I'm sure you got a way, and you say that's just the way you are. But baby, don't you do what you're about to do. Just wait before you go too far. This ain't an ocean that will lead you back to shore. This ain't a mountain you have ever climbed before. This ain't a promise you can make and then ignore, 'cause you just ain't falling in love.
So there we go. That's kind of the raw mix with an EQ. We can leave this. We can make an adjustment here if you want. It's really up to you guys. And what I'll do is I'll start setting up our loop. We'll start concentrating on the drums here in a second.
Yeah, Timmy says play as you go, feel it out.
Okay, let's play as we go. And we'll, after we do a couple of tracks, we'll keep going back to that master bus, Johnny, see how the compressor's reacting. We'll see how the EQ looks, and excuse me, we can make adjustments from there. So let's start off with our kick drum here. And again, I'll turn things up so you can hear them. Just let me know if things are clipping in any way. So here is
there is quite a delay with the chat.
Okay.
Christopher Farlow says a little high shelf air on the mix bus EQ.
Okay, we could put something up there.
Yeah, just like a 1 dB type of thing, maybe.
Let's see. Here's a.
Then we should get onto the kick drum.
Yep, here's a couple of dB for you. And again, I don't know where you want to put it. I could around maybe 8K or so, 10K.
Yeah, 10K.
Okay, let's just start there. Let's go to the kick drum. So here's our kick drum all by itself with no processing. I'll turn this up a little. Just want to make sure it doesn't clip on you guys. It's not clipping here, but just let me know in the chat. Okay, so there's our kick drum. What are we thinking? What's the first thing we want to put on that kick drum? Any thoughts to that kick drum? EQ, compression?
Not seeing any yet. They're still actually talking about the EQ on the mix bus.
Okay, we'll get back to the mix. We'll get back to that mix bus, guys. Don't worry. We'll get back as we start processing things. We got 25 people here. Thank goodness. You guys are cool. Okay, yeah. No, we'll get back to it. We're gonna go bounce back and forth. Let's start moving on the kick drum a little bit because we want to try to keep this session to an hour-ish, give or take. So on the kick.
About EQ, so I think we're getting Presonus EQ.
Okay, Presonus EQ on the kick. Let's move that over. And what do we want to do here? Let's play this loop back a little bit again. What are our thoughts on the kick? What do you guys want to do to this? What are you guys thinking? When you hear this, what do you anticipate you need to do?
Raymar here says 60 to 80 bump.
Okay, 60 to 80 bump up.
Future says cut the mud out.
Okay, let's start 60 to 80. There we go. We got some thump happening there.
Yeah. Cut some mud. I'm thinking that's around about 350, 400 to my ears.
Yeah.
I'm here.
So here's around 63 hertz. We're bumping up about 6-7 dB. Let's see if we can get some mud out of there. So for people that, who are new to maybe using EQ, just to show you a quick technique, when someone says cut the mud, what that means, and you say, well, what's the mud? And Johnny just said he kind of, just from his training, he knows about what that frequency is. But let's say you don't know, and you don't know. You say, well, where's the mud? How do I find the mud, right? So here's a technique you can use. So you just take this, you take any point, and you start to bring it up. You narrow the Q, not too narrow. I usually go around, 4 or 5, and I exaggerate this, and then we do what we call sweeping, or what I call sweeping. Some people call it fishing. And you just move it back and forth slowly till you hear the nasty stuff that you don't like, or the worst of the nasty stuff that you don't like. Oh, little brown. So right there on a kick drum, that real hollow sound, that happens to be around 227. So when if I find that frequency I don't like, then I just pull that back. Maybe 3, 4 dB, 5 dB. And then I take the Q and I widen it a little bit. And the reason why I widen it is to kind of give it a more gentle curve so it's not so spiky. Now, again, that's general. Sometimes you want to tighten up that Q. It really depends. But that's the way you kind of find those frequencies. And the same thing on the boost side. I don't know who said it, Johnny. Someone said boost up between 60 and 80. They know from experience it's in that range with a kick drum. But it's the same thing. If you don't know, you could do the same thing if you want to find the pleasing frequencies, not just the offending frequencies. So in this case, same thing. And I'm looking for that thump. You can hear how low it is there. You move it up. And it really just becomes what you kind of want to hear.
Yep.
Like for me personally, I kind of like that. That's at around 50 hertz. And now I may not give as much gain there. And the same thing, smooth it out a little bit, smooth out the Q. Okay, so before, this is before. This is after. Okay, so we got a little thump and a little less mud. Anything else you guys want to do to this kick drum from an EQ perspective? And again,
we've got a few here. We've got Bojan Dub saying cut high, Raymar saying 4K for attack.
Okay.
And Missy Shannon, hello Missy.
Hi Missy.
Says boost around 1K.
Okay, let's do a little boost because we got 2 people to do that, so we'll go around 1K-ish. And again, we can go back to if we're looking for, the click, we can do the same thing. We can narrow that Q. We can start around 1K. And we just keep moving it around till you find what you like. Or what you don't like, and you can always cut it. That's 1K. Now, if you really want the click, they usually live somewhere in the 4 to 5K range, typically. Especially on an inside kick mic, which this is only because I can tell by listening to it. So it really depends what you guys like. So there's Missy's 1K boost. Anything else you guys want to do? Again, as a comparison, here's before. After. Are we pretty happy with that kick drum, Johnny, you think? Or do we want to process a little more?
Raymar actually mentioned 4K for the attack with the beater.
Okay, so let's do that. That's right around here. Here's around 4K. And he's right. There's the attack right around there.
Right there, yep.
So again, we went from this to this. Okay. Anything else, or do we want to move on to compression, or do we even want to compress?
There's a comment here for 5K low pass.
Oh, to cut everything above 5K
Yeah.
out?
That one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, sure. We could do that. Do a high cut. Let's do a steep octave here on this one.
Yeah. Are you going for like a 12 dB one there, or 24?
Yeah, this is a little bit more. And I could do 24. I could even do 12. He said about 5K?
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to bring us right around here. Here's around 5K. So you're cutting a little bit into that click, which is okay if that's what you guys want. And I can gentle the curve a little bit. Here's 12 dB octave. And I could bring some of that click back here at that 4K mark. So we're there. That's before. after. Okay, I think we got a pretty good sounding kick drum here.
Yeah.
Okay. What about compression? Do we want to do anything? Let's talk about the whole, how do we want to, now we have a drum bus that we haven't done anything to, so we can either compress on each individual track, we can just do bus compression, or we don't have to do any compression. We could do whatever you guys want to do. So by listening to that kick drum, what do you guys, as a group, what do we feel we want to do? What do we want to do to this? Do we want to, do we want to compress on the kick itself? So when you think about compression, one of the things you want to think about, just like with EQ, but more so I think on compression, because EQ, you get, even if you're new, right, Johnny, you get the instant gratification of what EQ sounds like. You can hear the audible difference. It's night and day, right? If you move things high and low enough, you can hear it. Compression's not quite that cut and dry, right? So whenever you're talking about compression, and I'm asking an open-ended question like this, because I want you guys to think about, well, why do don't just say, let's just throw a compressor on it. Why do we want to compress? If you're going to compress, let's have a purpose. Do we really need to compress? Think about if you're writing in the chat, yeah, let's compress. Think about why. Not because you see all my videos, I put a compressor on kick drums, because that's not always true. And the next, I think 2 quick mixes from now, I didn't compress the drums at all because it didn't need it. So think about that, okay? And if you're not sure, throw that up in the chat too. This is a learning session, right? So as we move along, you guys help make decisions. Johnny and I, if you're not sure or what the thought process is, please ask. Don't feel embarrassed, or don't feel like there's no stupid questions here. We were all beginners at one time, so we're here to help. So if you're not sure about compression or anything along this video, stop us and say, hey, stop, and ask a question. There's no silly questions at all.
Definitely.
Compression, do we want to compress the kick drum? Or do we want to move on to the snare and come back to it?
Everybody is pretty much backing up what I'm about to say, which is let's do bus compression for the drums.
Okay, and what do we want to do for a bus compression? Now we could pick a Presonus one, or we can pick the LA2A. You really only have 2 choices. And I'm curious to know what they want to do, John, but I'm also curious to know why they're picking which compressor, because these are 2 totally different. I've done this for a reason. That stock compression, that LA2A, are completely different in the way they sound. And so I'm curious to know what you guys want to do, but then I'm also curious to know, why do you want to use that compressor? What is your thought process? And it could just be as simple as, because I've used it before and I like the way it sounds on a drum bus. That's just okay. You don't have to get real technical. But if you have a reason for it, that would be great too. This will be, again, hopefully help shed light to other people that are here. Share your knowledge, share our knowledge together. So, which compressor?
We've got 2 votes here for an LA2A.
Interesting. Okay.
I'd love people to kind of like maybe give like a short.
Yeah. Why? Why the LA2A? What?
Not that it's wrong. But
it's not wrong. There is no wrong. Believe me. I've used LA2As on drums in time, not very often, but I've done it. But what have you guys heard so far through the static mix, or lack of, just throwing up the faders and that kick drum, that would make you guys pick the LA2A?
Ramos said, because I like the dynamics.
Okay. It is a dynamic compressor, that's for sure.
It is for sure a dynamic compressor.
Let me get the stereo version of it. Another thing, you guys, here's just a tip. Most of you know this, but I made this mistake, so I'm going to share it with you guys a long time ago. When you're using stock plugins, it doesn't matter if it's a stereo track or a mono track, it knows the difference. But on third-party plugins, especially Universal Audio, they make 2. When you buy the Universal Audio plugins, you get a mono version and a stereo version. So if you have a stereo track, make sure you use the stereo version of the plugin, or it will sound weird. It'll work, it just won't sound right, and you'll go, something doesn't sound right. I've done that before. So usually after the plugin name, they'll have the letter M in the parenthesis, and that means it's mono. And because this is a bus, I got to get the stereo version of this, which I have. So let me just kind of fumble through it while Johnny checks out the chat. I will find it.
Baba Sadat says use Waves SSL, which we're not using in this mix at all.
We could next time. I have a Waves SSL.
Yep. Next mix maybe.
Yep. let's see, LA2A, the gray, and we're going to take the stereo version of it. Okay, so here's the stereo instance of the LA2A. And there's several versions of it. We're just going to use the one that most people know, which is the gray face, the light gray one. Okay, so here we go. So let's play back this kick drum and see how much compression we want to do here. So we just turn up the good old peak knob.
So we're doing this on the bus, right?
We're doing this on the bus right now. So everything is going to go through this. So right now we're just kind of tweaking the peak a little bit. We're getting about 1 dB of compression. To give you a little bit of makeup gain. And if I toggle it off, whoop, that's before, after. Let's kind of level match the plugin a little bit. That's before, after. What are you guys hearing out in the chat? Do you hear a difference? And if you do, what do you hear?
Great question. Raymar asks, are we mixing in mono? We're kind of forced to by Wirecast, aren't
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because I'm not going to really do any panning here. I mean, this session really doesn't lend itself to a lot of hard left, hard right stuff, so I think we'll be okay. Even though I'll put the master bus here on mono. But so yeah, it's going to be mono, not going to be stereo. That's just the internet and our Wirecast software. But for our learning purposes here, I don't think it's going to matter all that much. So what do we hear when we put that LA2A on? So, and then we should move over to the snare.
Yeah, Eric is saying definitely a punchier sound.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Actually, I think the combination of that compressor and the EQ that we've done directly on that drum is definitely giving it a nice bit of punch.
Yeah, it's a good choice. So let's move on to snare. So here's our snare, and I'll keep our kick kind of here because we want to try to do this in context of the mix. Although I'll turn up the snare a little bit so you can hear it more obvious. So there's our snare. So what would we like to do from an EQ point of view? Do we want to do any EQ, or do we just want to leave it alone? Okay, guys, what do you guys hear? What would you like to do to that snare, if anything? Or do we just leave it alone and move on?
Okay, we've got a question here.
Shoot.
And the question is, as we all know, drums are mono.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know if we have to put mono plugins on drums for mix, or can stereo be used?
Well, excuse me, the individual tracks are mono. That is correct. So if you have a plugin like I just mentioned that has a stereo version and a mono version, you would want to use the mono version on the individual tracks, except for the overheads. The overheads in this particular session are stereo, so you would use the stereo instance of the plugin. If you're using, like in this case, just the stock plugins on some of these, there's only one plugin, and I guess there must be some. It adapts to whatever track you put it on. There's not a mono version and a stereo version. Not as far as I know, right, Johnny?
Yeah.
At least I don't think so. And there's only a couple of companies that do that. Universal Audio is one of them. I think there's some Wave plugins that do that too, if I remember right. But most,
Yeah, there is some where it just automatically detects whether it's a stereo or
right.
Or mono.
Like Slate Digital, there's only one plugin and it knows regardless. So you don't need to, but if your plugin that you're using has two different versions, just make sure you put the appropriate version on the appropriate track. Okay, so anything with EQ on snare drum, or anything with compress? Well, we said we're going to compress just on the bus. So
yeah, so EQ, we're talking Pro EQ.
Pro EQ.
And we're talking a boost of between 220 and 240 to give some fatness.
220 to 240. Okay, let's start there. There's around 230-ish. Again, we'll go up and try to find. There's the fatness. It's around 206.
206, yeah.
Okay, anything else?
Those are fantastic recordings.
Not bad, right?
Yeah.
Anything else on this snare drum from an EQ point of view?
Nothing further at the moment.
We don't have to do anything further. We can leave it right now. We can move on to the hi-hats. We can always come back to it.
Yeah, I think maybe we should just move on.
Okay, and we could double check our compressor here just to make sure. Okay, we're not let's make sure we actually have some compression happening, right?
Yes.
Not sure how much compression you guys want to use. We'll do a couple of dB to start maybe.
Yeah.
We can always tweak it. Okay, hi-hats. Where are our hi-hats? Right here.
As soon as I said we should move on, they're starting to talk about other EQ moves on the snare.
Okay, we could do it. Let's bring the here's the EQ up. Go ahead.
Boost around 5K.
5K.
And Eric agrees with that.
Here's a 5K boost. About 3 dB.
And Isaac says, I heard too much 2 to 3K.
Too much 2 to 3K or boost 2 to 3K?
Too much. So cutting.
Cut it. Okay, so let's try to find that nasty frequency. So we'll go back to our little technique.
This sounds like a steel shell snare
Yeah.
as well. So that 2 to 3 is not far off wrong.
That's 2K right there. Good call, good call.
Yep.
Okay, so let's compare. Here's before. And here's after.
Okay, Bojan is saying it's still too bright.
Too bright? I can take down the boost of the... We did a boost at about 5K. So
Yeah.
bring it down to about a dB and a half or so. Here's before.
People are happy with that. That's good.
Good. Okay. Hi-hats.
Hi-hat time.
Normally I would pan these, but you're not going to hear it anyway, so the panning's not going to matter.
Now for a hi-hat, Dave,
Yep.
would you kind of de facto high-pass filter it?
Typically I would.
Yeah, me too.
So we got some EQ. Now what EQ do we want to use? We want to stick with the Pro EQ or do we want to move over to the Pultec? You guys, what do you guys want to do for the hi-hat?
Let's see what people are saying. Actually, Isaac says the hats already sound good.
They do. We can leave it alone. We don't have to do anything. Remember, if it doesn't sound like it needs anything, you don't have to put anything on it.
Yep.
Still got some compression happening.
That's the real skill with mixing, isn't it? It's not
It's
just
right. You
it's
know
not
what it is? It's like well, you're a bass player. It's like a guitar player or any player, right? Any instrument. It's not what you play. It's what you don't play, right?
Exactly.
So
yeah, that's the difference between somebody good and somebody very, very good.
right, less is more. A lot of times, not always. And same thing with mixing. It is a very easy thing, and it's and again, we're talking to the people that are fairly new. The more intermediate people that are watching advanced, they already know this. But everyone has a tendency to just slap EQ compression, lots of reverb, throw all these plugins on there, A, because we have them, and B, because somewhere on YouTube somebody told you need to put a compressor on every single track, or you need to put an EQ on every single track, or you always need to boost 5K, or you always need to cut the hi-hat.
Well, you always need a high pass filter.
Always
That's
right.
all.
You need to listen. Now there are general rules, right? We know that typically on a hi-hat we want to get rid of the low end. So, but that might have been done at recording on this track. Unless you recorded these tracks, you don't know what's been done on the way into the DAW. So you have to use your ears and not your eyes, right? And you have to listen and say, I always ask myself, now it's instinctive, but at first I would always ask myself, okay, hi-hat, what do I want to hear? Not what compressor, what EQ. What do I like the way it sounds? No. Okay. What don't I like? And then that will start to drive the questions on what to use, if anything. Okay. So again, hi-hats, do we want to EQ it? We can play it back a little more.
Okay, we've got some EQ requests here.
Okay.
Bojan says same EQ, so I think that would be
Pro EQ.
Pro EQ.
Okay.
Uh,
So what do we want to do to this hi-hat? Now here's something really interesting. Remember we were just talking about, Johnny asked me, would you typically roll off the hi-hat? And I would say yes, typically, unless it's already been done. I could tell just by looking at this EQ, that's already been done. The lowest frequency is around 100 hertz. So the engineer rolled off the low end at recording.
Yeah.
Which is what they should have done, right? But 8 out of 10 times I get mixes and they're not rolled off and you do it. So that's why it sounds pretty good. Someone in the chat said, Johnny, this sounds pretty good. One of the reasons why it sounds good, it was probably EQ'd on the way in.
I think it has been. Somebody has basically said just drop the volume by a couple of dB.
Yeah, I turned it up. I exaggerated it just so you guys all can hear it.
Cool. It's a lovely set of hi-hats. I think they're Sabians. They certainly sound like Sabian hi-hats.
Yeah, so we don't have to do anything with the EQ. I mean, someone said put an EQ on here, but unless you guys think we need to do anything, we can just leave it as is for now, and we can always come back to it, or we can delete the plugin altogether.
Yeah, Missy said low cut, but that's already been done. So
Right, you can see it's already been done. I mean, we could put it there if it...
It says go for a little bit of air, maybe up around 7.5K.
Okay, cool. Let's do that. Oh, I don't want to take that one. Let's do this one. Here's around 7.5, about 4 dB. It's right there. That's before. After. A little brighter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, to my ears, that might be a little too bright.
A little too bright. We can turn it down a little. Sure.
That's mostly because I like my hi-hats quite dark.
Now we got about 2 dB boost.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
everyone's saying that sounds good and cuts through nice.
Okay, so now we got the tom, and I think they only hit the tom once. Yeah, right here. So we're not going to, anything we do here is not going to shape the face of modern music with this one tom hit, but let's listen to it anyway. So here's kind of what we have for our tom. Yeah, unmuted here. Floor tom, no less. So again, do we want to do anything to that floor tom?
Interestingly, Isaac's comment, going back to the hi-hat, says putting EQ is bringing the volume up.
You can turn it down. Well, it is because we're boosting frequencies. We're boosting a little on that top end, so it's going to appear to be louder, but I just turned it down a little bit again. And as we move through the mix, we can always go back and tweak the faders for sure. Anything with this tom? What do we think? Or do you want to leave it alone?
Not getting any comments here.
Hey, well, let's move on to the overheads. Well, like I said, we're not gonna make or break this song over that one tom hit.
It's just the one hit, isn't it?
That's it. And I can play the overheads into the tom fill so you can kind of hear it.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
So here's the overheads.
Okay, Eric is saying that he almost wants to gate it.
Gate what?
I guess the floor tom.
Well, there's nothing. There's no bleed. I don't believe on this floor tom. Yeah,
No.
there's no bleed at all. So there's nothing there to gate. You won't hear anything. There's no bleed at all. You can see I'm zooming in on the audio here, and you can see the tom right here.
Yeah.
There's no bleed. So yeah, no. And if there was mic bleed, I would agree. I'd say let's gate it or let's chop out all the stuff before and after it. But there's nothing there. So
yeah, I would have if there was, I would have used an expander
of some kind. Yeah, right, exactly. But we're fortunate that we don't need to do that work on this one. So here's our overheads. Anything we want to do to this? And there's kind of the tom fill into with the overhead in context.
says 200 hertz for a little clank. I assume he means cut.
A little clankety cut. What kind of EQ do we want to use?
Good question. Okay, we've got some requests now that we've brought the overheads in. We've got some requests for EQ on that floor tom.
Okay, what do we want to do?
Isaac says around 800 to 1K, small cut.
Okay. I'm just going to pick the Pro EQ here. So,
and around 500, a wide EQ.
That's about 1K.
As soon as you said Pro EQ, everyone has gone Pro EQ. So.
Okay, good. I thought they were going to do pull tech once I pulled the other. And someone said, what, around 500? We'll cut. Okay, let me see what we can find, if there's anything there. This is the floor tom mic I'm working on now, not the overheads. It has a little cardboardiness there. We could pull that out a little.
Yep. Quite dry sounding heads.
Yeah. So there's our floor tom. Anything else we want to do to that?
Well, Eric said that was 500 on the overhead.
No, that was on the floor. Oh, he wants on the overhead. I hear what he's saying. Okay.
Gotcha.
Well, we got a little bit of woofiness on the tom itself at around 500. So we could pull some of that out. I'll let you listen to it. It's right here. You'll hear it in a second. Kind of that cardboardiness. We can yank some of that out. So now on the overhead, do we want to use the same EQ or do we want to use a different EQ? What do we want to do there? It's our last drum mic. Overheads. Any thoughts, Johnny, on what you want to do, if anything?
Nothing coming through. So, you know what? I actually think it sounds pretty good. I mean, maybe pulling out a little 500.
Okay, you want to use the stock EQ for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
But really, other than that, I think they sound pretty
Here's
good.
500.
As soon as we said that, everyone said Poltec.
There's 500.
My vote would be save the Poltec for the drum bus. Personally. But
Yeah, it's right around 580 is where that hollowness kind of happens. So we can yank some of that out. Is that good for the overheads? And the thing about the Pultec, remember, you can't pick 500 hertz. It's not one of the frequency choices. So remember, the Pultec's a little more limited, not in a bad way. But if you want to really sculpt something, you want to start with this EQ.
Yep.
Not to say you couldn't add a Pultec after this EQ, because you can. But so this is our overhead that we're looking at here. Anything else we want to do?
everyone says yes, that's good.
Good. Okay, cool. So this is our drum sounds. Now we can balance things a little. I can... You let me know if the balance of all this sounds good. And here's our drum bus compressor. Yeah, we're doing about 3 dB-ish.
That's all right, isn't it? This kind of song you don't want to squash.
No, this is before the compressor. After.
Rainbow, that's hilarious.
Okay, so that's our drum sounds.
Rainbow's hilarious. He just says, this is like squeezing blood from a turnip because it already sounds good.
True. So what we're doing is we're sweetening. So let's that's a good point. So let's go ahead and let's oops, I didn't want to do that. Hold on. Here. That's the raw tracks with no EQ, no compression on the bus. So we went from this, let me let it loop around. To that. So even though it does sound great on its own, we're sweetening. We're not killing anything here. We're just we're enhancing what's already been done fairly well, right? So that's our drum sound. Is everybody happy with the drum sound? Can we move over to the bass, or do we need to go back and tweak anything on the drums? What are you guys thinking?
Eric says it's really good.
Okay, cool.
Says After Effects is much sweeter.
Yes. Well, that's good. If it wasn't, then we're going in the wrong direction. So that thing that I just did, turning the effects on and off, during the course of a mix, I do that an awful lot. I'll do 2 or 3 tracks, turn them all off, turn them all on. Constantly refreshing your ears, getting that A-B comparison, super important, because you can get yourself way down a path and then find out at the end that you were better off in the beginning. And that happens. And that's why we said a little earlier, using EQ and compression with a purpose, with a goal in mind, not just slapping it on there for just because, you know? Okay, so let's move on to bass.
Isaac says, could you level match the outputs?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yep, I can do that. I can do that at this level here. Hold on. I'll just do it at the, I could do it at the compressor here, really. I don't want to do that here. I could do it here. Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Cool.
Okay, bass guitar.
Bass guitar. And we're coming up on an hour.
Okay, so we'll do the bass and then we'll stop. And then the next time we'll do the acoustics and the fiddles and the leads and the vocals.
Yep. Should be able to get this done in 2 parts.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, here's our bass. I'm turning it up louder than it probably needs to be so you all can hear it. Anything we want to do to this bass from an EQ or a compression point of view? Let's talk about EQ first.
No comments as yet. Tell you what.
Yeah.
That bass sounds lovely.
Sounds awesome, doesn't it?
I think, to me, to my ears, it sounds like it's been compressed already. On the way in.
Could have been. And again, to help out our newbies, if you're not really sure, and again, you can't always tell for sure, but the way I look, you can look at the audio wave, and sometimes that'll give you kind of a clue whether it might have been compressed a little on the way in. So what I look at is I just look at the consistency of the waveforms, especially bass, especially if it's played with fingers, because unless it's a pro player, a lot of bass players or guitar players that record at home that play the bass, like me, you would see the dynamic range between the notes way all over the place. A pro player can play a lot more evenly with even velocity, and that could have happened here. Or because I see these bass parts are fairly even, it probably was compressed on the way in a little bit, maybe. And so that's another way you guys can tell. But again, we're using our ears, right? So does it really matter what the waveform looks like? Not really. Do we like the way it sounds, or don't we like the way it sounds? Does it sound even? Does it sound like it sits nice with the drums?
All right, we've got some EQ requests coming
EQ requests, I love it. Okay, what do we want to do?
But nobody is actually, at the moment, nobody is switchy. EQ. Aha, Missy has just said which EQ, but nobody else has.
Okay, which EQ?
Pro EQ.
Pro EQ.
They're talking about dealing with the bottom end.
Okay, what do we want to deal with?
Raymar says EQ bottom at 70 hertz. So I'm thinking that's probably going to be a cut. Or
A cut 70 hertz or a boost 70 hertz?
Isaac says lowest note is too bassy. So could be looking at some kind of dip here, maybe.
So you want a dip here at around 70?
I've not got confirmation of that yet, but I'm
Okay.
assuming it. Yeah, there we go. A cut at 70.
Around 70? Okay, so let's try to find, is it 70? That's about 70. The fundamental frequency on this particular bass is 85, 86. That's the lowest note, so we could cut a little there. 70, yeah, 70 is a great starting point, but every bass is a little different. Depends where on the neck he or she is playing as well. And so we can roll that off a little.
Yeah, this bass player is mostly playing up in the second and third position.
There you go. So that's about a 3 dB cut. It's set at 86, 86. So before, that's before. After. Anything else on the bass?
We've got a request for a boost at 1K.
1K. Okay.
And a high pass at 30.
There's 1K. Did they say high pass or did they say boost?
A high pass at 30.
Oh, sorry. I was confused. Okay, so you want a low cut at 30 hertz. Okay, so let's just type that in. That's just probably easier.
And a boost at 1.
And a boost at 1K. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit more of a steeper roll off there. So there's 30 hertz on a low cut, and then you want to do a little boost at 1K.
Yep.
Here's about 1K. They're looking for the fingers to come through, so see if we can find it.
Now this bass player I think has played nice and smooth, a little bit further up towards the neck than down at the bridge pickup.
Yeah, I would agree. Right there, right around, yeah, around 940 hertz. So 1K was a good call. So do a little bit of a boost there. Widen this a little bit.
That was Missy that called that.
Oh, good call. Okay. So there we go. About 4 dB of a boost at around 940 hertz seems to be the most effective.
Isaac here says there is a boost on the sub-frequencies only on one note. And then he suggests inverting the phase.
Inverting the phase on this? Okay. On this EQ, can you do that on this EQ?
You can do it on the mix tool.
Mix tool, that's right. Yep, see? Shows you how much I use this EQ. Not very much. I forget sometimes. Okay, mix tool. Right. I'm thinking the Pro Tools EQ. You can do right. You can do it on the. You could do it on the EQ, not on the Presonus one. Okay, mix tool. That would be under the letter M. Okay, here we go. Mix tool on the bass. All right, let's phase invert that and try that out.
Okay, Isaac's saying deactivate the EQ.
There you go. Deactivated it.
Not quite sure. I don't think there's a phase issue there.
No, I mean, not enough to, I don't really hear it. I don't know if you guys in YouTube land hear it, but not really. No.
I think I can see where he's getting at. He's getting at that there's one particular note that sticks out.
Yep. Let's see. We could try to find it here with the EQ. So we did a boost. We did a cut here. Let's see if we can find it here with this.
Oh, Isaac says he says no, I'm wrong. Forget it.
He's talking about that note.
know, that note there.
Okay, Bob, that's about 82 hertz. So we weren't far off before. We were only off a little bit to the right.
Yeah.
So there's our bass. Are we good with our bass, EQ wise?
Eric says it made it better.
It did, I think, as well. That was a good call. Good call.
Some good EQ decisions here.
Okay, what about compression? Do we want to compress? I'll get rid of the mix tool here.
There's a little. Yeah, Isaac's saying it's lower. The note is lower. I think what Isaac might be hearing is a subharmonic below that 82. So I don't know. I wonder if he's hearing something that's like. No, the note is at 2:50. He says.
Right there. It's that note. I know what note he's talking about. It's right at the end of the phrase here.
Yeah.
Right there. It's that note there.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to do anything from compression on this, or do we want to move on? Well, we're going to end the video here probably at the end here, but...
Yeah. Eric says no compression. Keep it as it is.
Any compressions? We have no compression on 1. And if you want to use compression, why? How many people we got hanging out? A lot, I think, huh? Let me look up here. 22. Okay, cool. Cool.
Okay, votes generally here are no compression.
No compression. Okay, great. Okay, so our drum, let me lower it in the mix a little.
We do have a question from the future here.
Okay, shoot.
And he says, how do you balance a kick and bass in the mix?
How do you balance it? Well, it's pretty much, again, it's all personal preference and taste. So that's what I'm doing right now. So depending, and again, a lot of it also has to do with the style of music. Okay, so again, we're doing this, you know, we're soloing and we're kind of moving along. But as we were to build the mix, depending on the style of music, will depend on where some of the relationship between the bass and, say, the kick drum kind of live. And certain styles of music, you'd want maybe the kick to be a little bit more prominent and the bass maybe rest in the back. And then in other styles of music, it's the exact opposite. And then it's all personal preference and taste. But it's a feel thing. You know, it's what do you want to hear? Or if you're doing a client's project, what do they want to hear? and or the style of music a lot of times will dictate it. You know, if it's like a heavy metal track, for example, it's more the bass guitar. Everyone thinks heavy metal, the kick drum is what punches through. Not true. It's usually the bass guitar. You hear the click of the kick drum, but the low end of the track is usually the bass. But
Yes.
in other styles of music, it's a little different. So it really depends.
Yep.
So how are we liking this so far? So again, let's do a before and after as far as all our processing goes.
Yeah. Isaac here, continuing with that note, he says, if you fix that note, there's no need for a compressor. Everything else sounds
Pretty even? Okay.
even.
So this is what we started with. Here's what we ended up with. So it sounds like it's got a lot more clarity, has a little bit more punch.
Yep.
Our compressor now, here's our compressor on our drum bus. We're doing about 3 dB-ish. Before. So I got probably a little too much gain there. Whoops. After.
Nice.
Okay, now on the master output, remember we put a compressor in an EQ. We haven't really done anything there.
That's true.
So here's our master bus compressor here. We're doing a 2-to-1 ratio. We could turn down some threshold and see if we can get some compression happening. I'm setting it up kind of with an SSL style attack release. Doing a couple of dB of compression.
That's cool. Probably don't want to do much more than that.
No, we're only doing a 2-to-1 ratio, right? So we could turn up the auto gain a little bit, a little makeup gain, 2 dB. That's before. after. Can you guys hear that compression difference? It's before.
Hi, George.
After.
George Pinto just popped into the screen.
Oh, hey, how are you? So there's our compressor. So that is our drum and bass mix for this particular session. Let me get on over, bring Johnny back in here for a second. And there is Johnny. If I got to go over to camera number, I don't know what camera number 5. There you are, Johnny. You should be on the screen with me. So,
Awesome.
so the next session we'll do the strings, the fiddle, the guitar, the vocals, and then we'll post it. I want to try to keep these things to about an hour, no more than an hour and a half, to try to keep these in small chunks. So, any questions from anybody before we kind of sign off? When will the next session be? We'll probably, I don't know, Johnny, you and I got to kind of figure out if we're going to do these in 2 chunks. When will the next one be? It won't be as widely scheduled. It'll be probably more of an impromptu on the second one. But if you subscribe to Home Recording Made Easy and you have the notification on, as soon as we go live, you'll know about it. And as always, we'll put it on the YouTube channel. So it's up there in the archive for you guys to kind of check out. So I think that was fun. That was good. We got a lot of participation, and I think we definitely are moving in the right direction as far as sonically. It sounds already a lot better.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, I really like what's been done so far.
Are there any other questions in the chat? Anything you guys want to ask us or talk about this particular mix? You guys kind of, again, this is sort of new for us, this interactive kind of mixing thing. Is this something you guys are kind of digging, you're having fun with, something we should continue? I have to get down, so I haven't saw the chat in a long time.
George says, how the heck is this live stream so clear and not buffering?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. We've had pretty good luck with that. I'm not really sure why. Sometimes YouTube behaves and sometimes it doesn't.
Somehow, Edinburgh and Connecticut seem to be just inextricably linked somehow. I don't know.
I don't know what it is, but it's definitely working well, and that's always a good thing. So Tim says, keep it going. Eric says he really I dig it. It really helps. Okay, awesome. Missy, yeah, Missy. Oh, hi, Missy. How are you? Wow, we got a lot of people still hanging out here. Yeah, well, we're gonna keep doing these if you guys like this. This is what This is new. I know, again, we weren't sure how this was going to go, but I love you guys kind of jumping in and making some of these decisions. And as we move forward, I'm trying to not interject any of my own mixing opinions on any of these things. I want it to come solely from the chat. But as we kind of move forward, we'll start spending maybe some more time on, the why we're making decisions, or why you guys are making decisions that you're making. And then based on that, maybe give you some alternative things to try. So you can kind of get an A/B comparison. Because I think what I find, Johnny, I don't know if you find this with your clients, but what I find that is still confusing to a lot of folks is, talking about EQ and compression, because those are really the 2 main tools. Everything else is just, tape machines, and that's all icing on the cake. But it's really the why and the purpose around why, what they're doing and why we're doing it, and not having that clear vision, if you will, on why am I doing something the way I'm doing it. And then I also find, especially as some folks start moving into the world of third-party plugins and some of these vintage emulations, which is why I chose these, and we didn't really use them. And I noticed the last time, a lot of people are sticking to the stock plugins, which is totally fine, is totally cool. And if that's all you have, you can get an amazing mix with that. But as we move forward, one of the things that I want to try to show people is why would we choose, in this case, our LA2A over that other compressor? Because they're both going to compress, right? They're both going to do the same thing. One looks a little different than the other, but they're both going to achieve the same thing as far as dynamic control. But what a lot of people that jump into the new third-party plugins, the part of it that they miss is the tone of each one of those compressors, where you almost use them like an EQ. Yeah,
exactly.
Right? And it's not just compression anymore. It's compression, yes, with how do I want it tonally to sound sitting in whatever particular track or mix you're working
Yeah.
And I think that's the piece for me. I don't know your experience, but that's the piece for me that people seem to miss because I don't see that being taught anywhere.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you know, I took a very long hiatus away from third-party plugins.
Yes, I know.
And it only just coming back into it, and you're partly responsible for that.
Well, thank you very much.
It's your fault. But yeah, so I'm kind of like catching up. I've got about 15 years worth of catching up to do. But just the emulations that are around now compared to the ones that we had back in the days of the early Waves bundles,
Much different.
They are outstanding.
Right.
It's,
Yeah, the technology has gotten to the point now where, I mean, I have demoed, and again, I'm only talking about Universal Audio because that's the ones I know well. I've demoed an LA2A and the real thing. I mean, side by side, and hell, if you can tell, I mean, it is so hard now. The line between the digital and the analog emulation is so thin now. If you buy good ones, I mean, there's ones that are lousy, but if you buy the Waves are good, Universal Audio's good, the Slate stuff is excellent as well. That they've done such a good job modeling these pieces of hardware that, like you said, 15 years ago, that ability, just from a technological standpoint, really wasn't there. Even though they claimed it was there, it didn't sound like the hardware. And so there really wasn't a big difference between the old emulations and maybe the stock plugins, where today there really is a big difference. But again, it's really tonally. It's not, it's really a sonic thing.
Yeah.
It's, it's all those words we use like warmth and vibe and harmonic distortion and all that stuff that we always talk about has a sound. It has a tonal sound. That is different from one plugin to another. And so I think the big breakthrough for the beginner into the intermediate stage is when they can actually audibly now have wrapped their head around, I can hear that difference. Doesn't mean you like it better. It just means that you actually can distinguish the difference between an LA2A, for example, and a Presonus stock compressor. When you can actually hear the difference, and it's not volume, it's tone, that then kind of kicks the door open for you as a mixer, because now you're only limited to your imagination, because now you understand how it all ties together. And it doesn't mean you're going to run out and just use third-party plugins. It just means that you can hear the difference now. And now you can apply these things to your mix in the way that you want your mix to sound. And so I think that's huge.
Yeah, I agree. Bojan has a great question here.
Okay.
And I think we could consider applying this for the next session. He says, can we compare the difference in tone next time for bus compression? So I think maybe he's talking about comparing the LA2A to the
absolutely. Yeah, we should. And again, I was going to suggest that a couple of times throughout this, but again, trying to kind of see where the group goes. But yes, and that's always a good idea to do that. And that's the way you learn what sounds different, is by being them side by side and having someone level match the plugin so that the volume is the same and you can really focus in on the tone. And it's funny, on my YouTube channel just yesterday, I think, I was in the middle of doing a quick mix for November, I think it is. I'm way ahead. And we were doing bass. And there was a great example. We were using Slate Digital, and I was using one of his LA2A, the FG401, which is the red compressor. And then I didn't like it, and I switched to the 1176, and there was a massive difference in the tone between those two compressors. So much so that I stopped the quick mix and I shot a YouTube video and threw it up on the channel. So for anyone that hasn't seen that yet, go out and watch it. It's only 5 minutes long, and it kind of just ties in everything I just said, and it's a snippet from the quick mix series for November, and you'll see and you'll hear in that example, it was really obvious over YouTube how much of a difference there was between those two compressors, and why I picked what I picked. So, yeah, so go check that out. So, any other questions, or should we wrap it up here, Johnny? What do you think?
Let's just maybe look at one here that says it's Raymar, and he
Okay.
says, due to time and stream lag, it seems hard to get all the comments in time. That's a point.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's the world. That's the wonderful land of YouTube. Um,
yeah, but I would say there's probably about a 3-second delay between what you type and when it comes up for us on the chat.
and that's actually pretty good for YouTube. 3 seconds. It's usually longer than that, right?
It's been hovering in this hour between 3 and 5 seconds.
Right. So here's something that's interesting. Johnny and I talked about this, and we could kind of share this a little bit with the chat, as long as you don't go out and tell the whole world, right? One of the things that this is an experiment, right? This whole interactive mixing, and one of the things that we're eventually going to do is to move this from YouTube and to move this into another platform that is made really to do what we're trying to do. Right, John, we talked about Zoom and the webinars and doing things like that where there is no delay. Everything's in real time and you can see it live. And that will resolve some of these issues if we find that people really like this kind of format. The difference will be for you guys is that, we'll put out a notification. You'll have to kind of schedule it because it won't be a part of YouTube. So when we go live, you won't see it pop up on your phone like you do now. But if we schedule them a month in advance or 3 weeks in advance, where they can come out again, it'll be for free. Where you'll be able to jump onto this link, and you'll have I think a better experience. You don't get the buffering that you do on YouTube. You don't get that delay that you get with YouTube, and we saw the other day, right, that the quality of the video was much better as well.
It was outstanding.
Was really, really good. We were really surprised. And so, yeah, that'll be something that'll come in the future. I know the YouTube thing is somewhat limited. Oh, and also too, we're in mono here. Going through this other platform, it's stereo from what I'm told. So that'll help too for, when we pan things and those kinds of things and using delays and reverbs and such. So.
But hey, it's good to learn to mix in mono, right?
It is. We talked about that. Yeah, it is. And so, again, some of these things are not going to, and again, I don't know, depending on people's internet connection, what could be going on there from time zone to time zone, state to state, country to country. You're not going to get the most ideal situation, but I think the concepts and techniques are really what's important, and you can still, kind of apply it to what you're doing anyway.
Isaac says that he can see a Wii in the background of my studio. Yes, I do have a Wii in the background.
Oh, the video game. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what he's really doing in the studio. He's not working on music.
I don't know. Why mix when you can play Call of Duty?
That's it. Right. Well, that's much more fun.
George says that YouTube is in stereo. Yes, it is in stereo, but I believe the Wirecast platform is not.
That's right. It's not YouTube. It's Wirecast, which is what is the software that we're bringing to you now. But when we move to another platform, we won't be using Wirecast for that. We'll be using it's called Zoom, and that's stereo. Right. And Wirecast is just more stable than you can broadcast YouTube without Wirecast, but then we can't do all the same things we could do with Wirecast. So there's always some give and take, just the way it is. Anything else? How many people are still hanging out with us, Johnny?
22.
Oh, it's been pretty much the same for the whole broadcast. That's great. That's awesome.
Wow.
Anything else, guys? If not, we're going to wrap it up, and then we're going to come back, probably within the next week, and we'll do the second half of this mix, and then we'll post it up there, and I'll make sure I go back and I'll get the other mix and make sure it's reposted on Facebook. And then don't forget that this next coming a week from today, we're doing our monthly live broadcast, where we won't be working on this song. I'll bring something else up in Studio One, and we'll do some other demonstrations of some things. We'll do some Q&A. We'll talk about what's going on and, new developments and new training products and all that stuff, and our normal monthly kind of hang, which will be cool.
It's going to be cool, man. Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see. Isaac has a question. I have a question about snare tuning according to the song. Okay. Do we tune the snare according to the song? I don't. Some guys, even some engineers will even do it at recording. I've never been one of those guys to do that.
As a session drummer, I've been asked to do that occasionally. Like, For some songs, they want you to tune low.
Mm.
I mean, I've never been asked to tune according to the key of a song. I've never been asked to tune any of my drums to the key of a song. But I've certainly been asked to tune my snare drum low for, if they want a particularly fat sound, or to tune it really cranked up for like funk and fusion. You have that head as tight as, as tight as
Right,
it would.
almost like a piccolo, right?
Yeah,
Right. So just kind of high and low, but not to a specific note,
not
so
to
to
a
speak.
specific note. No,
Right.
not that.
But I've known people to do that, and I know that's a technique.
It is a technique. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
There's
not that clever.
technique. I think Andrew Sheps has talked about this on his YouTube
Mhm.
channel, about tuning toms to
Mhm.
the key of the song.
Yeah, no, it's something to experiment with. It's not something that I've ever really worked with or really messed with. Let's see. Isaac asks again. Yeah, I have the experience that tune it with the song client went crazy because it sounded better. Oh, okay. Well, no, that's cool. I mean, if it sounds better, then yeah, it's something to experiment with. All these little, and again, certain songs it may work great, and other songs it may not be what you need. That's a little bit more of an advanced technique, and I think that's cool. Yeah, if it sounds better, and if your client likes it, then tune the snare to the key of the song. you
That's
know,
if client likes it, that's what you do.
that's it. As long as you know how to do it, that's all that matters. Let's see. Music
Yeah.
Production Alliance says I need a tech to get my stream fixed. Oh, okay. I can't help you with that, unfortunately. Anything else? If not, I think, Johnny, we're about an hour and a half, which is cool. A little
Yeah.
longer than we wanted, but we're gonna wrap it up now. We're gonna throw it on YouTube, so it's up on the archive. Again, thanks so much for joining Interactive Mixing. This was a lot of fun. Again, stay tuned. Make sure you hit the notification button on the YouTube channel, and it'll tell you when we go on live again. And we'll finish up this song, and then next month we'll do another song. And again, be sure to check us out a week from today, 8 p.m. this time, Eastern Standard, not 5, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. It's on the Facebook page already, our monthly live stream. And that'll be it. I hope I see everybody there. Johnny,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
You're welcome, Dave.
And we will see you guys all soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks again.
Cheers, folks.